the most out of it. The great thing about the iPhone is it just works. The bad thing about it is they've thrown so many things into that menu that it's can be confusing for a lot of people because they don't tell you what a lot of this stuff does. So we're going to go over the hidden menus and modes of the iPhone camera today here, and we'll in about the half-hour break here, we'll start taking questions. So I'm just going to jump in and run through the presentation again, how to get the most out of the iPhone camera. That's me taking pictures in Japan. I have a series on YouTube called Photowalks TV. The entire show is filmed on an iPhone. I urge you to please do me a favor and go check it out. You can see it on YouTube at youtube.com/PhotowalksTV. You can watch it on Prime Video. You can watch it on Roku. And again, shot on an iPhone. The newest episode's out today from Columbus, Ohio, and looks pretty good on an iPhone. So be sure to check that out. We're going to talk about shooting like a pro. I'm a professional photographer. I have a photo gig later today. I'm out every weekend doing portraits and events in the Los Angeles area. I've been a photographer for most of my life, and I usually shoot on big cameras. And until I decided to start really focusing almost exclusively on the iPhone after my gear was stolen in San Francisco in the middle of a shoot. And I said, I'll show them. So there, because the video quality is so good on the new iPhones. And the still quality is almost there. But, you know, with editing, you can get it to be pretty much at 100%. But if you treat your iPhone camera like a professional camera, you can get professional results. That means that you use time-honored photography techniques like timing and composition and all the other things, and you take those same techniques to the iPhone camera and you get great stuff. Let's begin with the rules of the road. We all have our phones either in our pockets or in our purses or in our fanny packs, and they get dirty. The lenses get dirty unless you go out and buy a lens cover, but that will get dirty too. So first rule of any shoot is to clean the lens, please. Soft cloth, like I've got right over here. Check storage. And I did a little picture there, but let's do that together. We'll go to general, we'll go to iPhone storage, and it pops up. I've got, yikes, look at that. That's terrible. That means I have just under 10 gigs available for my next shoot. So I'm going to have to clean out this iPhone and make some room in there. So I don't want you to show up to a shoot like me right there. Bad teacher, bad teacher. I want you to clear it off. There are many ways to do it. Deleting and backing up and all that other good stuff. Be charged up. Have a full battery. You know, it sounds kind of silly, but a lot of people will actually show up to a shoot with 5 to 10% of juice, and that is not enough unless, I mean, if you're just doing a handful of pictures, it's fine. But if you're going to Zion National Park and you're going to spend a day there, you want to be at 100%. And if you're driving to an event, like, have a charging cable in the car so that you show up with a fully charged phone. Now, if you're not charged and you didn't bring the cable, get Accessory Power. They're really easy to come by. You can get them for as little as $20. They're usually called power banks. Mophie has this new one, which I really like because it has the cables built in. And the cables can be kind of confusing because you'll need a USB-C to Lightning cable to charge your phone. And you'll also need a USB-C to USB-C to charge up the power bank. I love this guy because it has both of them. And if you need a link, let me know and I'll get you some links. But basically, just look up power bank on Amazon and you'll get many different options. There are lenses on the front of the phone. You're surprised that many people are not aware of that. They are your camera lenses. There are different choices for different models. Older phones have fewer choices. I've got a picture here of the iPhone 11, which you can see has two lenses, unless you got the Pro model. The 12 and the 13 and the 14, they've got three in the Pro level. Let's talk about the choices that you get. Most of them will give you an ultra wide and a wide. And the reason I'm showing this lens is because if you have a 14 Pro, a 13 Pro, a 12 Pro, you have the equivalent of what is the photographer's go-to lens, which is the 24-70 zoom. You actually get a 13 to 77 millimeter on the later iPhones, which is great. It's more versatile than my 24-70. Just to show you what things look like, that is ultra wide, known as 0.5. This is 1x, which is the wide. On the 14, you have a new offering, which is the 2x lens, which is like a 50 millimeter. And then you have the 77 millimeter. So you can see that is a lot to play with there. And one of my rules of photography is that I shoot everything at all four, or if you have the 13, at all three. Let's now dive into the settings, okay? And I'll open up my camera here so we can play along. So starting at the bottom, you have Timelapse. And that is one of my all-time favorite tools here. That is for watching the world fly by at super fast speeds. It's really easy to do. You just have to put the camera onto a tripod and have a smartphone tripod mount to fit the camera. Those are like $10 to $15. You can handhold for about a minute. You can't handhold for 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Most time lapses, I will shoot for about an hour to get a minute's worth of footage. So it takes some time. The longer you run, generally, the better it is. I've never come back from a shoot and said, I wish that I hadn't recorded so long. It's usually, I wish I recorded more. Either the clouds flying by really fast or a morning shot where you watch the sun come up over a building. It's really cool. Clouds make for fantastic time-lapse subjects. So if you see some clouds out there, get busy. I want to see that Wellington, New Zealand time-lapse, okay? Next up is SloMo. I think you all know SloMo and watching the world slowly go by. Great tool. If you do reels on Instagram or shorts on YouTube, these are really great little big nets to throw into your regular footage, which you can easily edit on the phone. We'll be getting into editing a little later. And on SloMo, you can do handhold because it's going so slow that you don't see the movement. Another thing to know about SloMo is to give you two little options. You can shoot at either really slow or really slow, and go for the really slow. The 1080. Cinematic is on your more recent phones on the 13 and the 14, and that is basically portrait mode for video, where you get to blur the background. Next up is video, and that's pretty simple. You press the red button and you record. You're given a choice of frame rates, which we'll get into in a minute, but basically 24 frames, 30 frames, and 60 frames. 24 is the industry standard. 60 frames is really good for action, and action looks better at 60 frames. Photo, there we go. We press the white button and take a picture, and as you can see, our lens choices are directly above, 0.5, 1x, 2, and 3. Portrait, which we talked about, blurs the background, and I'm going to open up my phone for a second. My phone just went kapooey. Can you believe it? Well, so much for that. It was at 100% when I started. I don't know what happened. So let's talk about portrait mode. So as you can see in the photo here, there are several different ways to do portrait mode. You have natural, studio, and contour. If you could see the studio, you could see a little different lighting effect on her face. And then the three other ones are stage, black and white, and high key. High key is great for doing a headshot, as you can tell, as long as you don't mind it being black and white. I think the phone reopened here for some reason, and let's see what happens. No, I don't think it's going to be good. Okay, we'll keep on going. Headshots in portrait mode. Check it out. You can take a black background or a white background against a busy background and convert it. So that's something to consider. Pano is your last choice. Big ultra wide shot when you can't get everything into the frame. This is a Pano because I just couldn't get the building in there. I think I have another one. And this is a Pano trick, which is the double exposure Pano trick, which I can tell you more about during the question and answer period. Let's talk about the hidden camera menu features. There's that caret that you will only see at the top of the screen when you press photo. You see it, everybody? In that menu, the first thing you will see is flash. I'm going to try something again. Does our phone show up here? There it is. Okay, very good. Okay, we're having technical difficulties, so much for the phone. Okay, so flash is your first, and my big recommendation is to never use it, to have flash off, because people look like they're lit by a blowtorch with flash. If you need to illuminate, I think a better way is to have a friend hold their phone over your subject and turn on the flashlight app in the phone on another phone. I think it'd be way better. Night mode is the next one. This is maddening because it's an automatic thing that will only turn on. It will only turn on when it wants to, which means when it's dark. It works best when it's in a tripod, but you can hand hold it. And you can get exposures for up to 10 to 30 seconds. And it's pretty cool for nighttime dark shots. Live photos is the next one, which I love. I use it for long exposures. It started as a trick, as a way to give you 3 seconds of video in your image, and which is cool, but it also has this thing called long exposure, and you can make water really silky and gorgeous, as you can see in this photo. You can also erase people. If you look at this picture, I took a picture of the Manhattan Beach Pier with a rainbow, and this woman was in my shot, and I wasn't happy about it. So I shot it live. I went on long exposure, and she disappeared. Thank you very much, Apple. Next up is styles, and they are filters, basically, to give you a different look for your imagery, and you're kind of stuck with them. So I steer clear of them. And then we're looking at formats, that you're given a choice of formats. I prefer to shoot everything in JPEG because there are too many websites that still will not accept the file, which is called HEIC. WordPress and Pinterest do not accept them. The advantage of HEIC is that it's a smaller file and it will eat up less of your storage. Aspect ratio. Okay. Aspect ratio. You are given a choice of 16:9, 4:3, or square. And let me try that again. Square, 4:3, 16. Oh, you can't see my hands. Square, 4:3, 16:9. I prefer 16:9 because I shoot video, and when I insert photos into my video has been shot at 16:9, so it's easier for me. Plus, I think that on the big screen, which is here, a 16:9 photo looks prettier. Good news is that if you wanted to, you could change the aspect ratio after the fact by going to edit, and then there's a bunch of little squares, and you could use those squares to go in and change your 4:3 to 16:9 or your 16:9 to square or whatever. It's pretty cool. Let's talk about some more settings. Video frame rates. I'll just quickly, this sounds like mumbo jumbo, but you're given a choice of 4K, 30, or 60 frames at 4K. And I shoot at 60 because it's better for walk and talk, better for walk and talk shots and walk and talk. But the industry standard is 24. It's considered smoother. But if you do things with action, 60 looks pretty cool. 60 frame is about twice the size of the 24. So your file sizes will be much bigger and you'll be eating at your storage. But I think it looks really good. Exposure control is the next one. You're given the choice of manual exposure override. The great thing about the iPhone is it gets everything in focus. It gets the exposure perfect, except when it doesn't. And there are times when you want to make things lighter or darker, as you can see with this light bulb. Whoops. Okay. So you could either press your finger down on the screen. Yeah, you could press your finger down on the screen and the little thing comes up, or you could use the menu and go up and down with the slider. Works really well. Next thing up is the timer, which I use all the time for a better selfie shot. I put it on 10 seconds. That's the exposure that I was telling you about with the sliders that go up and down. Back to the timer, better selfie, because it's too hard to hold the phone out there and get your finger on that shutter button while composing the shot. My friend, the rabbi at the local temple, he uses my technique. He puts the camera on the tripod and he puts the camera on the timer and there it goes. Okay. My brother's just calling me, but we are ignoring that. Filters. Okay. Filters are cool because you can change them after the fact. And you're given a choice of vivid cool and vivid warm and vivid dramatic and dramatic warm and dramatic cool and all these different looks, which I frankly don't use. I would rather jump into them during the editing and make my choices that way. But again, with these, you can use them and then lose them. How do you shoot black and white? How do you shoot black and white on an iPhone? Where does it say, okay, now you can shoot in black and white? It doesn't. It does not tell you that anywhere. So if you want to shoot in black and white, you go into filters and you're given the 3 filter choices, which is mono, silvertone, or noir. The flip side is that in the editing, you can open up Apple Photos app, go to saturation, and pull the saturation all the way down. Just a brief thing about RAW. For the iPhone 14 Pro, they introduced the ability to shoot in RAW at 48 megapixels, which is a much bigger file. And it's an unprocessed file that you need to then go fix in editing. If you want to shoot 48 megapixels on your iPhone Pro, you need to shoot in RAW because it's the only way you get to shoot to RAW. Macro. Okay, how do we do macro? Pretty simple. Take the more recent iPhones and just hold it in front of a subject. And then to confirm that you're indeed in macro, you need to go into your settings to see this flower. And that means you open up the camera app in general settings, go all the way down. I don't have it there. And you will see the macro settings all the way at the bottom, and you will appreciate it. I am going to try for one quick second to put in my other phone here. Oh, that's starting to come alive. And what will happen here? Let's see. Let me try the phone here. Do we see it? We do not see it. So much for that. And this one, this time. There's Ruth. Oh, okay. I want to show you the settings here. Okay, camera, macro control. See that? It's all the way at the bottom of the camera settings. And now we're going to turn on the camera. And you see the yellow come up? You also see that my brother's calling, but you see the yellow. How close can we get? You can see all the marks on my finger. Okay, are we excited? Let's go back there. All right, so next, I'm going to do some tips and tricks. Fixing the backward letters that we all get on selfies. That you could fix that in mirror mode. I think that's in camera as well. Let's go back there. Okay, see that? Mirror front camera. Have it off. Have it off, and then you will not get the backwards letters. I have more tips and tricks. Burst mode. Are we shooting in burst mode? You know, you can stop action with the iPhone. You actually can. And there is a technique. You could either hold down the top volume button, which is cool, or we're going to go back to the phone again. Okay. This is a very tricky thing, as you can tell. You swipe it, and I'm taking hundreds of pictures right now. I'm not stopping action because there's nothing to stop action for. But if I hold the button down, it'll start recording video. But if I swipe it, I get burst mode. Do you know that you can shoot video and take photographs at the same time? Let me show you how to do that. Go to video mode, and you see the record button, the red record button. And I'm pressing record, and all of a sudden, the white photograph button comes up. And all I have to do is press it, take a whole bunch of pictures. I don't think they're worth anything there, but you can see that I could do that. Okay, photo rules. I told you that if you treat your camera like a professional, if you treat your iPhone like a professional camera, the iPhone camera like a professional camera, you can get professional results. The number one rule of photography for me is timing. The best pictures are always taken early in the morning or late in the day. That's when the world is at its most colorful. If you look at any travel brochure, odds are that the pictures were taken at sunset or somewhere near there, right? So here is the Columbus, Ohio skyline. Looks pretty great, right? There's the Columbus skyline at nighttime. Which do you prefer? These were both, as everything here, taken on an iPhone, nothing special. I did have the camera on a tripod, I think, or no, because I was doing time lapses as well. So I had one camera and a time lapse because I usually go to every shoot with two iPhones. So one camera's on a tripod doing a time lapse, and then I was hand holding this, and I think it looks pretty good. My other big rule is that when you're taking pictures of people, you want to shoot in the shade. You have to shoot in the shade. If you're shooting like most people in the middle of the day between 12 and 4 in the afternoon, you get terrible shadows in their eyes and all over their faces. And if you're just willing to move a little bit and go into the shade, you get a beautiful portrait. All right. So just and keep moving until you get it right, and you'll get some pretty great stuff. Steady your shot by holding both hands on your phone. Sunsets actually look best on an iPhone. I have done it too many times, taking pictures on my big camera and versus my small iPhone, and I get better pictures on the iPhone. You know why? Did you know that every photo taken on an iPhone is actually a multiple exposure of 9 images? Apple takes 9 photos shot at different exposure levels and merges them together in a nanosecond. It's an amazing thing that they have been able to pull off. Shoot lots because you can. Just try every angle, every variation. Shoot on the floor, shoot on the ceiling, shoot left, shoot right, shoot. You get what I'm saying. Try every variant there to get your best shot. And because you can, because we're shooting digital. I grew up in an era where I got 36 frames to my roll, and that's what I had. And I had to make it all work with 36 frames. Now, you could argue that maybe I could be a better photographer then because I could be more economical and more methodical. But now I don't have to worry about the cost of film and the cost of developing. I just have to worry about storage space. With the iPhone, yes, we have limited amounts of space and we can't expand them once we buy the phone, but we can offload them and offload like crazy. And we can talk about different ways of doing that. Shoot in threes. It's the same thing. Use every lens on your phone every time. And one of those is going to be best. Now, in my little dinky pictures of the guitar, nothing really jumps out at me there, though I would say the middle shot is the best. The middle camera is the wide camera. The 1X is the sharpest camera, the sharpest lens in your iPhone. So that's good to know. Particularly at nighttime, it's the best in low light. Did you know that bad weather is fantastic? If it's raining, I am excited because you know, once upon a time, I jumped into a pool with the phone and I freaked out because I totally destroyed the phone. Now I can go swimming with the phone because our phones are water resistant. You can swim with the phone. You could go back to Oscar there and you can take pictures in the rain without having to worry about your phone. You could jump into a puddle. You could you can do whitewater rafting. There's so many wonderful things you can do with these phones. I talked about shooting videos and stills. Foreground will always make more interesting pictures. This is my picture of a rainbow versus having a lifeguard stand in the rainbow, which really helped really bring it to life. And thinking about your foreground really helps. I'm going to tell you about the magazine trick. This is really cool. Now, I showed you I showed you a picture a minute ago of my friend who looked awful during the day, right? Now, if I had a magazine, I could have held it over his head or had a friend help me out there. So the magazine trick, somewhere, everywhere you go, there's always a real estate magazine, a giveaway newspaper, something that you could hold over someone's head, which is what I did here. I just held it over my friend Chris's head. As you can see, there's bad reflections on his nose. And when I held it over his head, the reflection disappeared. Okay, I'm gonna give you one more. Trees in the head. This is one of the most common mistakes that people do is when they're composing a photo, they're not really thinking about the background and they get trees coming right out of your head, the old devil's thing that looks really silly. My friend Rich right there. And as you can see, all I had to do was move them just a little bit and the trees have disappeared and I think we get a much better picture. Before we take questions, one more thing, digital zoom versus optical zoom. If you'll hear Apple say, well, you know, they have 10x zoom, they have 20x zoom, and you can pinch and go all the way in. Well, be really careful there because that is something called digital zoom. All it's doing is taking your photo like this and cropping the living daylights out of it and blowing up a little portion of it to the point where it looks awful. And if you could see here on our shot here, I have optical and then I have digital, and the digital shot is really awful. So I'll talk about editing in a minute. Let's open it up to questions. What do we got?
Hi, Jefferson. We have a question in the Q&A pod. Can you change the interval on the time lapse feature?
You cannot. It's totally automatic. And everything in there has been selected for you by Apple. I would love that feature so much, but it's not there. The good news about shooting a time lapse on the iPhone is that you press a button and it does its thing. And when it's done, it processes everything together instantly. When I shoot a time lapse on my Sony, I'm taking 1,500 stills. I then take those stills, I import them into my Mac, I put them into Lightroom, I process the images, then I export as a video, or I do it in Final Cut, and it's a slow, laborious process. So the good news is it doesn't take a lot of work to do it this way.
Can you use iPhone 14 Pro to get photos and videos underwater?
Yes, you can. Can you use the iPhone Pro to take pictures underwater to a certain level? First of all, Apple recommends that you don't do it. So know that, but you can do it. As you could, as I showed you those pictures in the pool of the girl underwater. Go back there. Those are taken underwater. I wouldn't go too far. I would do a few shots. The biggest fear that you have is ruining your charging port. But I didn't have any problems with these shots, and I know people are doing it every day. So, one thing to think about if you really want to use it for an underwater camera and are concerned that you've spent $1,000 or more is get a used iPhone, get an old iPhone and an older, as in a 12 or a 13, and use it for your underwater camera. Get an SE, which is sells for $400. So that's my take there on underwater. What else we got?
Two more questions. When you get to editing, Adam Cooper said he's had some issues bringing the footage into Premiere. So what's the best way to do this so the footage looks best?
Okay, are we talking about HDR footage?
If Adam can put in the chat, specify, he said video.
Okay. So they have a setting for HDR video that I would never ever use, and because it looks awful in video editing programs, I can tell you in Final Cut, because I know about Final Cut, there is something called HDR tools, and you stick it over the clip, and then you make an adjustment to bring it back to life because it looks totally overexposed. My video footage that I put into Final Cut from the iPhone looks fantastic. Again, I shoot every episode of Photowalks TV on the iPhone using it at 4K, and it looks wonderful. What else? Anything else?
Yeah, so from Carol Garcia, her question is, for those of us who own Android phones, example Pixel Pro series.
Okay, my go-to app is Lightroom Mobile, though I'm also a big fan of Apple, the Apple Photos app on the phone. And but Lightroom Mobile is free. It's from Adobe, and you can. My favorite tool on there is called DeHaze, and I want to do one thing here with my phone for a second. That is, and we'll plug that back in. Okay, so Lightroom Mobile, I love, and let's talk about finding photos. Because one of the hardest things that people have to deal with is finding images on their phone because they're just scrolling like crazy. Who tags them? Because if you will do people tagging, it becomes much easier. And how you do that is you click edit in the photo, and then you see that little circle in there with the person's face. And you assign a name to that person, and then this person's name is Michael. And you just do a search for Michael, and you could find it. That is the face in there. There's Zadie. Oh dear. Okay. So I was going to show you some editing basics on this phone that started messing up, and I'm going to see if we can't get this phone back together. Think of some questions while I play this game here. What are we going to do here? Can I get this phone back? No. Why is that? All righty. Try this guy again. Oh, you're looking at a blank screen. Okay. So editing. The basics of editing in the iPhone is that you go to the Photos app and you have a whole bunch of sliders at the bottom of the screen. And those sliders will, let's see, I'll just go. There we go. There's my full screen now. The sliders at the bottom of the screen will give you a whole lot of options. The first one I always use is the wand, the automatic wand, which basically uses Apple's automatic features to enhance the image and make things brighter. And after that, you have exposure, and then pretty much every slider is a variation on the same thing, whether that be exposure and brightness and contrast and things like that, till I get to the end and I get to the black point slider. And I usually take the black point down all the way, and that boosts the colors. So that one's really cool. And if I want to go to the next level, I will go to Adobe Lightroom. That has a slider in there called Dehaze, which will make the colors richer and make the sky darker. So I really like that. And then from there, I would go to Snapseed, which is owned by Google, and that's where I can really go crazy. The two tools I use in there are HDR and Drama, and that's when you want to make just the clouds insane and really nuts. That's what I do for editing. One question I've always gotten a lot is, do I do all the editing on the phone or do I do it on the computer? I actually do a slight edit on the phone, but if I really want to work on the photo, I'd like to see it on a bigger screen. So I do go through all my photos on the computer afterwards. I will import everything into Lightroom, which is now Lightroom charges on the computer, but it's free on the phone. And I use Lightroom to keep track of all my photos. And I do all the more serious editing there. Now that we have a new tool in Photoshop called Photoshop Beta, generative, I can't say it, but generative fill. I think that's it. And you can take out things and remove things and add things. It's wild. If you're not subscribing to Creative Cloud, you might want to give this a try. Creative Cloud is $10 a month for Photoshop, $10 for Lightroom, $20 for the whole thing. But today we're talking about iPhone. Let's talk about video a little bit and how I shoot Photowalks. I pretty much handheld everything. Whoops, I can't move that. Okay, I use a selfie stick. Okay, I'll pull this up. Selfie stick. Put the phone on a selfie stick. I don't use a gimbal. I pan like this. I go back and forth. I go up and down. And that really helps a lot. I don't like gimbals because they're a pain in the butt to set up. And it's another thing that I have to carry around with me. The beauty of shooting a video series on the iPhone is that you can show up with two phones in your pocket and a selfie stick and a microphone in your pocket, and you're pretty set to go. If you have a big black camera, it can be intimidating to people. If you have a little iPhone, they are not intimidated. They will not kick you out from the shoot. They will not tell you you can't go, you can't be here. And if you say, I'd love to interview you, you got a little phone, they say, sure, no one's ever going to see it, and they're happy to talk to you. As opposed to a big black camera, it becomes a bigger thing. The image stabilization on the video has gotten so good that I can pretty much handhold the entire shoot. I do some shots on the tripod. Pretty much it would be the time lapse that we talked about, and that's pretty much it for video. If you have any questions about shooting video and editing video, please put them in the chat. We have about 9 more minutes to go here. So I have shot everywhere from Paris. Let me tell you a story about Paris, because I've shot in Paris, I've shot in Japan, I've shot all over the world, and people thought I was a little crazy for going to Paris and going to Japan without my big cameras. But I did just fine. Again, 2 iPhones in the pocket, selfie stick, microphones in my pocket as well, and I was set. In a perfect world, I'd bring lighting with me, but the little lights, do I have one? I don't have it on the desk. I thought there was one on the desk somewhere. Nope, not on the desk. My little lights, they are not strong enough to give you much more than just an inch or two. So anyway, that's it. That's compact. I also walk around with a tripod. I have a small little tripod that I bring with me everywhere. It's a travel tripod. It's made by Manfrotto, and it's called the Element 2, and it sells for $150. It fits in a suitcase, and it works really well unless it's windy. So if it's windy, you want a bigger tripod. Though I had this tripod at the top of the Arctic Triumph, and it wasn't a problem. Because it's a smaller tripod, they didn't see me walking in with it. A lot of places will have a no tripod rule, but I pulled it off. So that was pretty good. How we doing? Question time, anybody?
Yeah, doing great. We do have a question up in the chat. What would be a recommended video editing tool for a travel influencer?
Oh, okay. Well, I shoot on Final Cut. I'm sorry. I edit in Final Cut on the computer. That is a question I get a lot is, oh, you shoot everything on your iPhone, so I guess you are actually making the videos on the iPhone and doing the editing on the iPhone. That is not true. I do not like the editing programs on the iPhone. You do have iMovie, which is free, but you have so many more choices on the computer. Final Cut just came out with a version for the iPad, and it sells for $5 a month. It's a subscription program. It's a different way of editing. It takes some getting used to. I think it's a lot better than editing on the phone. That's for sure. The only snag here is you need the the latest model of iPad, which is the ones with the M1 chip, which I think you can get in for about $450. You can import the footage and you can do the edit. What you can't do is move the edit to the computer to finish off. You have to do the whole thing on the iPad, which has limited storage. You can airdrop your footage into the iPad, or you could shoot on the iPad. I wouldn't recommend it. It's too big and bulky. It's a weird thing. That's for doing full scale edits. There are a whole bunch of little programs like Splice and CapCut and some other ones that you could pick up to do your editing on the phone. I have done a lot of editing of little videos for Reels and Shorts. Whether I did them in Instagram, they have a program right in there. YouTube has a program right in there that you can just cut some clips together and cut off the front and the back and add sound and add music and do things like that. So that's what I'm using. To the person who asked, have you done any editing now, and what sort of videos would you like to do? We have 5 minutes left of this session, so I would like to open it up to any other questions about video, photos, gear, anything that's on people's mind. What would you like to know about? What can I tell you? Okay, I hear silence. So let me tell you about me and photography. My dad bought me a camera when I was 13 years old, and he bought me a guitar too. And I lived in the darkroom, and at that point in my life, and I spent hours and hours and hours in there, and really loved it. And cut it to. But what I didn't love about it was the cleanup process at the end. It would take hours of cleaning the trays and all those chemicals and things like that. And now I have the digital darkroom, and I do everything on the computer or the phone or the iPad, and it is so much better. It is so much better, and I could do. And that new AI tool I just told you about with Photoshop, I can do things now in 3 seconds that would take me, gosh, it would take me hours just a few years ago. So that's a pretty cool thing. I do shoot professionally on a Sony. I do portraits on the Sony a7 IV, and I use that camera for paid gigs because people expect you to show up with that if they're paying you money. I could do everything on the iPhone. I could do a wedding on an iPhone with no problem. You could do all the family portraits, no problem. The bride getting ready, no problem. Walking down the aisle, no problem. Then the only thing I couldn't do is a close-up of the bride looking lovingly at her groom. That would be a little tough, unless I was willing to just jump in there. And because at a wedding, you want to be in the back, that's a little hard to do. I also think the party would be hard for the lighting. You would need a flash. And there is a flash that's sold by ProPhoto. It sells for about $1,000. I probably wouldn't want to take that to a wedding, but it could be done. You could do it in LED light. Use something like that. Who out there has ever shot a wedding on an iPhone? Because I know it's being done every day. Right? There's a lot of people who just don't want to spend the money and will do it. So it's definitely possible. I would probably do a lot of portrait mode. And certainly the video would be fine as long as you put some microphones in there. And that's easy. My microphone of choice is the Rode Wireless Go 2s. So that's my take there. Again, Photowalks TV is my series on YouTube. The latest episode we did in Columbus, I shot about 90% of it on the iPhone, and about 5 to 10% was done on the Insta360 camera. That's this wild camera with 2 lenses, one in the front, one in the back. And you can get some pretty crazy results there. So you should check out that episode. Last week, we were in the dunes of Pismo, which is a wonderful otherworldly sort of spot in the central coast of California. I always shoot with 2 iPhones everywhere I go because, let's see, I like to have one that's just in case something goes dead, like this one went today. Oh, now you're coming alive. Now you're helping me out, huh? Okay. Look at that. Now it's coming alive.
Another question is the iPhone or GoPro for travel shoot? Which one?
Oh, the iPhone or GoPro for travel shooting? I use both. I bring the GoPro with me for my driving shots of the car going down the street, though I could use the iPhone. It would do just as well if somebody else was driving. I could stick the iPhone out the window and hold it with two hands. That is my GoPro shot. There are other underwater shots you could do with the GoPro, and some action shots, some skiing shots, situations you don't want to put your iPhone into. But I bring both. And certainly there's so many GoPros out there. It's really easy to pick up a cheap one at very little cost. What else you got? Anything else?
Oh, I do apologize. I was on mute. Yes. 2 questions regarding cage. What is the cage you're using for your phone? And do you use filters on the phone with that cage? And then we have another question about iPhone
Okay.
that I'll answer.
Okay. This is called the small rig. And I don't know the exact name of it, but it sells for about $80. You asked about filters. Boom. That's an ND filter, neutral density, sticks right on. Yeah, magnetic. I had to buy an adapter from Small Rig to get the lens on there. I love it because it connects directly to the tripod, and I don't have to use a smartphone tripod mount. And I also have cold shoes. You see up here? So I could put my microphone up here, or I could put a light here and here. That's that one. What else?
And one last question. When looking for info, example, picture, shutter speed, etc., on an iPhone image, what do those numbers mean? They seem different for Leah. They seem different for her Nikon.
I can't really hear you, so you broke up so many times. I'm not sure what you asked.
Can you hear me now? I do apologize.
I can hear you now. Tell me the
All right,
question.
wonderful. This question is coming from Layla. Layla, when looking for info, example, a picture, shutter speed, etc., on an iPhone image, what do those numbers mean? They seem different for her Nikon.
I think you're asking what do the numbers shutter speed and f-stop mean?
Yes,
Shutter speed is how fast the shutter went down. Did it go at 250th of a second? Did it go at 30th of a second? And your f-stop is how wide the lens is, how big the opening is. So if it was shot at 2.8, it let in a lot of light. If it was in 16, it let in lower light. And it's all funny stuff because they're just digital equivalents of what are features on a camera. And that's my answer. So there's a lot of numbers in there. I wouldn't pay too much attention to it because I don't think they're really shooting at 250th of a second. It's just doing iPhone computational photography, fun stuff. You have anything else?
Nothing else in the chat or the Q&A.
Okay, well, I've been told to give it a close at 15 minutes in, and it's 53 minutes in. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Oh, I do have a last slide to put up. And there we go. So Photowalks TV, you can find more about me at jeffersongraham.net. I have a newsletter that comes out every Saturday and Sunday at jeffersongraham.substack.com.